Every human being desires to be noticed, but for a woman, the craving for validation runs far deeper than simple acknowledgement. It is a subtle hunger woven into her psychology, shaping her choices, her emotions, and even her attachments. From childhood, she learns to associate worth with how others perceive her, praise from her parents, approval from teachers, attention from peers. This wiring never fades, it simply matures into a more complex need that hides beneath her confidence. The strongest, most independent woman may claim she does not care what others think, yet her actions reveal otherwise. The clothes she chooses, the words she selects, the images she posts, all carry within them the desire to be noticed, affirmed, and remembered. Validation is not just about compliments or approval. It is about being seen fully and deeply in a way that confirms her existence matters. When she walks into a room, she silently measures how many eyes linger. When she speaks, she notices whether her words land or disappear. Even in love, she searches for the man who not only hears her but makes her feel significant. This constant desire for acknowledgement becomes a lever of influence for the man who understands its power. The man who provides validation too freely will soon discover it loses its weight, for abundance dilutes its value. But the man who measures it, offering it sparingly like drops of water in a desert, ensures that every word he gives carries immense impact. This craving surpasses logic because it often pushes her to make choices against her better judgment. She may stay connected to someone who does not truly serve her best interest, simply because he makes her feel visible. She may chase relationships that drain her, only to satisfy the momentary high of being admired. She may sacrifice boundaries, time, and energy just to keep the flame of attention alive. The paradox is that validation, when withheld, can cause her to feel invisible, and invisibility to a woman is one of the deepest wounds she can experience. It is not the absence of love she fears most, but the absence of recognition. The man who comprehends this dynamic becomes more than just a presence. He becomes a mirror she cannot resist looking into. When he praises her at the right moment, she blooms. When he withdraws recognition, she withers slightly and seeks it again. This dance is not cruel by nature, but it reveals how validation operates as both fuel and chain. He does not need to overwhelm her with grand gestures or endless words. A single sentence at the right time, a subtle acknowledgement delivered with sincerity, can echo louder in her heart than hours of conversation. And when he refrains, when he allows silence to create a vacuum, she feels the absence so strongly that it compels her to move closer, to chase the very recognition she craves. Even her sense of beauty is tied to this hidden hunger. Cosmetics, fashion, and countless industries thrive on the psychology of female validation. Every advertisement whispers the same promise. If you look this way, if you wear this, if you project this image, you will be admired. And she responds, not out of vanity alone, but out of a deep-seated desire to remain seen in a world that constantly threatens to overlook her. Her sense of worth rises and falls with the eyes of others, and in relationships, this sensitivity becomes a path for influence. A man who understands when to affirm and when to withhold does not merely speak to her ears. He speaks to the deepest chambers of her identity. At its core, validation for a woman is not about shallow flattery, but about reassurance of her significance. To know that she is desired, to feel that her presence matters, to be reminded that she is not invisible. This is the fire that keeps her emotions alive. And because this craving surpasses logic, it often overrides reason, making her bend toward the man who knows how to feed it with precision, timing, and control. Choice is one of the most powerful illusions in human interaction, and when applied with precision, it becomes a subtle form of control. A woman values the sense of independence, the feeling that she decides her own path, that her voice carries weight and her freedom is intact. Yet beneath this desire for autonomy lies a truth. Choice is rarely about limitless freedom. It is about guided direction. When a man understands this, he learns to shape outcomes without resistance. For the moment she believes she has chosen freely, she will defend that decision as her own. This is the essence of the illusion of choice, granting her options, yet designing them so each path quietly leads back to his authority. Psychologically, this principle works because freedom without boundaries often overwhelms. Too many options create anxiety, confusion, and second guessing. A woman, like any human being, seeks clarity even when she demands liberty. The man who offers structure disguised as freedom becomes the source of both relief and attraction. He does not dictate openly, for direct control invites rebellion. Instead, he shapes a field of choices, all crafted to benefit his position, yet framed in a way that makes her feel empowered. In this dance, she sees herself as the decision maker, while he remains the architect of every possible outcome. Consider the simple act of making plans. If he says directly, "We are doing this," she may resist, interpreting it as force or dominance. But if he says, "Would you like to go here or there?" both being options he has already chosen, she feels included in the decision. The power of resistance vanishes, replaced by the comfort of participation. What appears as freedom is, in truth, a carefully arranged stage where every door opens to the same room. She will walk willingly, convinced it was her idea. This illusion also feeds into her deeper psychological needs. A woman wants to feel heard, to feel her preferences are valued, and to feel her voice matters. Offering her choices satisfies this craving, even if the choices are limited. It creates the sense of collaboration while ensuring the man remains in control. She feels respected, not restricted, even as her path is being directed. This balance between freedom and guidance is what keeps her engaged without resistance. Too much control suffocates, but too much freedom leaves her adrift. The illusion of choice binds both needs together seamlessly. What makes this tactic powerful is not manipulation for its own sake, but the recognition that people rarely resist decisions they believe they made themselves. Once she selects an option, her sense of pride and ego compels her to stand by it, even if the outcome benefits the man more than her. The psychological bias toward consistency ensures that she will justify her decision, defend it, and follow through with it, all the while deepening her bond with the one who offered the choice. The illusion of choice also extends beyond daily interactions into deeper layers of emotional influence. In relationships, a man may set the rhythm, when to meet, when to withdraw, when to engage, yet always frame it in the language of her freedom. Instead of commanding, he guides. Instead of forcing, he leads. Instead of imposing, he suggests. This creates a dynamic where she feels safe, yet unknowingly tethered. The man who controls the structure of options controls the flow of the relationship without needing to fight for authority. In essence, women, like men, do not seek absolute freedom, but meaningful direction. They wish to be free enough to feel alive, yet guided enough to feel secure. The illusion of choice satisfies both desires simultaneously. By offering the appearance of independence while quietly securing the outcome, a man gains loyalty without resistance, trust without doubt, and power without force. This is not about trickery, but about understanding the psychology of decision, making and positioning oneself as the constant center, regardless of the path she believes she has chosen. Mystery has always held a magnetic power over the human mind, but for a woman its pull is especially profound. What she cannot fully grasp, she cannot stop thinking about. Silence and unpredictability stir something inside her that attention and clarity never could. When a man is constantly available, constantly speaking, constantly explaining, he leaves nothing for her imagination to build upon. But when he withholds, when he remains just beyond reach, when he allows her to wonder, she becomes restless in his direction. The absence of clarity forces her to fill in the blanks, and the stories she creates in her own mind tie her closer to him than any spoken promise ever could. Silence is not emptiness, it is a canvas. A woman confronted with silence from a man she desires cannot help but project meaning into it. She questions why he is quiet, what he is thinking, what he is hiding, and whether she still holds his attention. Each question deepens her emotional involvement, not because of what he has said, but because of what he has refused to say. Constant attention reassures her, but quickly breeds familiarity, and familiarity dulls attraction. Mystery, on the other hand, keeps her unsettled, curious, and alert. It ensures her mind remains occupied with him, replaying moments, searching for signs, and inventing explanations. Unpredictability strengthens this effect even further. When a man becomes entirely predictable, he loses the ability to captivate. She knows what he will say, what he will do, when he will call, and how he will react. With such certainty, the emotional charge fades, replaced by routine. But when he acts in ways she cannot fully anticipate, appearing when unexpected, withdrawing when she assumes he will engage, surprising her with depth when she least expects it, her imagination is forced into overdrive. The uncertainty keeps her tethered, always trying to decode his patterns, always searching for the next move. The not knowing becomes intoxicating. Psychologically, this happens because the female mind thrives on emotional contrast. Certainty and routine satisfy her need for stability, but it is uncertainty that fuels desire. The man who balances both becomes irresistible, safe enough to trust, yet mysterious enough to chase. Silence amplifies this tension. While words give answers, silence opens infinite interpretations. Every unanswered question is an invitation for her to wonder, and every unanswered wonder is an anchor tying her to him. She cannot resist what she cannot fully understand, for the human mind is wired to seek completion. The more she struggles to complete the picture, the more she invests herself in the man who withholds the missing pieces. Mystery also elevates value. What is rare is precious, and what is scarce is desired. A man who withholds his full presence creates an atmosphere of scarcity around his attention. She begins to treasure every word, every gesture, every appearance, because it is not always available. His unpredictability makes each moment feel significant, and his silence makes his words carry weight when finally spoken. In this way, mystery transforms ordinary interactions into meaningful experiences. It is not the abundance of attention that binds her, but the tension of not knowing when or how it will arrive. Even in intimacy, mystery plays its part. A man who reveals himself entirely too soon loses the slow, burning intrigue that makes her return again and again. But one who reveals himself gradually, layer by layer, ensures that her curiosity remains alive. Each revelation feels like a discovery she earned, making her feel chosen, special, and invested. The mystery lies not in deception, but in restraint, the discipline to hold back, to remain slightly unknowable, to keep a part of oneself beyond reach. The pull of mystery is not about manipulation, but about understanding a truth of attraction certainty comforts, but uncertainty captivates. Silence and unpredictability are not voids, they are instruments of power. A woman does not fall hardest for the man who explains everything, but for the man who leaves her wondering long after he has left the room. Emotions are not steady currents, they are waves that rise and fall, and it is in this fluctuation that attachment is most powerfully built. A woman is especially sensitive to emotional shifts, for her mind does not merely record what she feels, it magnifies it. When she is met with warmth, affection, and presence, she relaxes into comfort. But when that warmth suddenly withdraws, when silence replaces closeness, the absence becomes louder than the presence ever was. This is the trap of emotional contrast, the deliberate rhythm of giving and taking, of closeness and distance, which creates a cycle of longing that keeps her endlessly chasing the comfort she once held. The psychology behind this lies in the principle of intermittent reinforcement, the same force that makes gambling addictive. If rewards are constant, the mind takes them for granted, but if they come unpredictably, the mind becomes obsessed with securing them again. A woman may experience joy when a man gives her undivided attention, but she becomes addicted when that joy is not guaranteed. The sudden withdrawal shocks her system, forcing her to replay the moments of warmth, to wonder what changed, to ask herself why it slipped away. The absence becomes a puzzle, and in trying to solve it, she becomes more invested in the man who created it. This contrast between affection and withdrawal intensifies her emotional attachment far beyond what steady attention ever could. A man who is always available, always warm, always present risks becoming ordinary. His consistency may build trust, but it rarely ignites obsession. On the other hand, a man who alternates between closeness and distance creates an emotional roller coaster that keeps her unsettled. When he is warm, she feels alive. When he withdraws, she feels the loss so sharply that she longs for his return. The highs become higher because of the lows, and the cycle repeats, strengthening her dependence. What makes this trap so effective is that it does not feel like manipulation from her perspective. To her, it feels real, raw, and deeply personal. She interprets his withdrawal as a sign that something is wrong, perhaps with her, perhaps with him, perhaps with the relationship itself. Her mind races with possibilities, and in the racing, she invests more energy into him than she realizes. She replays the words he said, the gestures he made, the moments of connection they shared, all to find the reason for the sudden change. Each replay deepens her emotional bond, even as she questions it. The man who understands this dynamic does not need to explain or justify. His silence after warmth speaks louder than any explanation. She will fill the gaps with her own imagination, and imagination is always more powerful than reality. The comfort she once felt becomes idealized in her memory, and when he finally returns with warmth again, she treasures it more than before. It feels like winning something she feared was lost, and that victory floods her with emotion. The attachment becomes stronger not because of the warmth alone, but because of the contrast between loss and gain. Even biologically, contrast intensifies emotion. The mind values what it nearly loses more than what it consistently has. A woman who feels a man's presence, then his absence, then his return, is experiencing a cycle of deprivation and reward that locks her attention onto him. She is not just responding to him, she is responding to her own emotional shifts that he silently orchestrates. This pattern is powerful because it mirrors life itself. Nothing is permanent, and the fleeting nature of moments makes them meaningful. A man who embodies this truth becomes unforgettable, for he teaches her through experience that his presence is never guaranteed. She learns to chase, to hold on tighter, to value more deeply, simply because of the possibility of loss. The trap of emotional contrast is not about cruelty. It is about the reality that warmth without withdrawal is taken for granted, while warmth that vanishes and reappears becomes the most addictive force of all. A woman lives within a constant paradox. She craves security, yet she is equally drawn to excitement. These two needs often conflict, but they both reside deep within her psychology. Security gives her peace, grounding, and the assurance that she is safe. Excitement, on the other hand, awakens her emotions, stirs her imagination, and makes her feel alive. When she finds only security, she may feel safe but stagnant. When she finds only excitement, she may feel alive but unstable. The man who learns to balance both becomes irresistible because he satisfies her need for stability while keeping her addicted to the thrill of unpredictability. Security is essential for her trust. A woman wants to know that the man she is drawn to can provide consistency, strength, and reliability. She looks for signs that he is not easily shaken, that he has control over himself, and that he can offer her a sense of grounding. Without this foundation, she cannot fully surrender because deep down her emotions need an anchor. Yet the irony is that too much stability without variation slowly dulls her attraction. Predictability breeds routine, and routine, though comfortable, quietly erodes desire. She may respect the man who always shows up the same way, but she will not feel a fire for him. Excitement, by contrast, fuels her emotions. It comes from the unknown, from sudden shifts, from the possibility of surprise. A man who is unpredictable, who does not reveal all of himself at once, who keeps her guessing, sparks her imagination in ways a steady routine never could. His absence makes her miss him, his sudden presence makes her heart race, and his mystery keeps her restless. Yet if excitement is constant without the foundation of security, it turns into chaos, and chaos breeds fear. A woman cannot sustain herself in a state of endless unpredictability. She begins to feel ungrounded, anxious, and unprotected. The secret lies in weaving both together. A man who balances security with excitement creates a rhythm that keeps her emotionally invested. His presence reassures her, but his unpredictability keeps her chasing. He becomes both the calm harbor she can trust and the storm that keeps her awake. When she feels safe with him, she relaxes, but just when she expects routine, he shifts, withdraws, or surprises her, pulling her back into pursuit. Each time this cycle repeats, her attachment grows stronger because she cannot detach from a man who satisfies both sides of her paradox. This balance is not about playing games, but about embodying polarity. Stability without spontaneity makes him dull, while spontaneity without stability makes him reckless. By offering both, he becomes the center of her emotional world. She knows she can lean on him, yet she also knows she cannot predict him. This tension keeps her locked in because her psychology cannot easily release someone who provides both the safety of security and the thrill of excitement. She feels complete in his presence because he feeds two hungers at once. The most powerful aspect of this balance is that it creates dependency. She cannot find it easily elsewhere because most men give only one side, either stability without fire or excitement without foundation. But the rare man who embodies both becomes unforgettable. Her mind tells her she is safe, her heart tells her she is alive, and the combination binds her deeply. The paradox becomes her addiction, and he becomes the only one who can satisfy it. In the end, a woman's need for security and her hunger for excitement are not contradictions, they are complementary forces. Security makes her trust, excitement makes her desire, and the interplay of the two keeps her tethered. A man who can anchor her while still stirring her emotions holds the most subtle form of power, for she will never willingly let go of the balance she cannot create on her own. The female mind is a storm of emotion, shifting and flowing with subtle changes in mood, environment, and circumstance. She feels deeply, but her feelings are not always steady. In these moments of inner turbulence, she looks outward for cues, seeking confirmation of whether her emotions are justified or exaggerated. This is where the mirror of influence becomes one of the most potent tools of control. By reflecting her emotions back to her, but with a slight distortion, a man can subtly redirect her perception, causing her to question her own judgment and lean on his certainty as the stronger ground. When she is angry, reflecting her anger with an amplified calmness unsettles her. Instead of matching her fire with fire, he mirrors her passion with silence or measured restraint. This contrast forces her to reconsider whether her anger is proportionate. In that doubt, she begins to look at him as the stable one, the one who has perspective when hers is clouded. When she feels sadness, he reflects it not with equal sorrow, but with a gentler acknowledgement, almost as though he sees her pain yet does not drown in it. This balance reassures her, but it also makes her feel slightly off-center, as though she is seeing her reflection but not perfectly aligned. The imperfection in the mirror is what makes her lean closer, questioning herself while relying more heavily on him. The distortion is subtle. If he mirrored her emotions exactly, he would validate them completely, reinforcing her perspective and giving away his authority. If he dismissed them entirely, she would feel unseen and resist his influence. But when he reflects her emotions with slight shifts, calmness where she expects escalation, confidence where she feels insecurity, detachment where she feels intensity, he places her in a psychological bind. She sees herself in him, yet not fully. That dissonance creates doubt, and doubt creates dependency. Women are deeply responsive to emotional feedback. When she feels joy and he mirrors it with playful reserve, she begins to chase more of his approval. When she feels fear and he mirrors it with composed strength, she finds relief in his steadiness. When she feels confusion and he reflects clarity, she begins to depend on his certainty more than her own perception. Over time, this creates a hierarchy. Her emotions may fluctuate, but his steadiness becomes the compass by which she navigates them. The man who masters this mirror does not need to argue or persuade. She persuades herself by leaning on his reflection. The brilliance of this technique lies in how natural it feels. She does not see it as manipulation because he never denies her feelings. He acknowledges them, reflects them, but always with a shift that tilts the balance in his favor. She feels understood, yet at the same time, she feels corrected not through force but through suggestion. The subtle distortion becomes her silent teacher, making her see her emotions from a different angle. Slowly, she begins to trust his interpretation over her own. And once this trust is established, his influence is complete. The mirror of influence also deepens attraction. A woman desires not only passion but guidance, not only excitement but grounding. When she sees her reflection in a man, yet recognizes his steadier, more controlled version of it, she admires it. He becomes both familiar and superior at once, the version of herself she cannot reach alone. This duality keeps her bound to him, for she sees in him the strength she lacks and the clarity she craves. In the end, the mirror of influence is not about domination, but about subtle redirection. By reflecting her emotions with slight distortion, a man positions himself as the anchor in her storm. She doubts herself just enough to surrender, and in surrendering, she clings to the one whose certainty never wavers. This is power hidden in reflection, the art of shaping her world not by confrontation, but by becoming the image she cannot help but trust more than herself.